Hello friends, it is Stasia and welcome back to my channel for a new book review. So today we will be reviewing a highly anticipated book, which you guys already know because it's probably in the title or the thumbnail. But it's a very popular book. It made a lot of people's favorites list for 2022. So that book is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. What we're going to do today is I'm going to tell you a brief synopsis to the best of my ability, and then I'm going to tell you my rating that I gave it based on what I thought I guess my rating would be. And then we're actually going to try to see what my rating actually is using the call pile method created by G over at Book Roast. She's another booktuber who created this super fun rating system for people who weren't really sure how to rate. Now, I don't typically rate my books this way, but I figured for like sit down review videos, it would be super fun to see if what I typically rate the book matches up with what call pile says that it is. So first I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. So Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow follows two characters named Sam and Sadie. So Sam and Sadie meet when they're very young, I believe like 5 or 6 or something like that. They meet in a hospital where Sam is currently getting surgery on his foot after an accident, and Sadie is there with her sister. Her sister is in remission, I believe. So she was like there for like a checkup or something. So she was at the hospital often. They ran into each other in like the game room in the hospital, and it kind of just kicks off from there because a lot of the nurses were like, Sam hasn't talked to anyone since this accident has happened, but he talked to Sadie. So they ended up kind of being friends, talking about like these games, and yeah, so this kind of follows them as children, but then it also follows them through the generations of them kind of meeting again, and you know, kind of just growing from there. They decide to create a video game together, so that's kind of like our main plot. They're video game creators, and they are friends, sort of. There's a whole situation with that. So yeah, that's basically what happens. I did tab it. There is quite a few tabs in this one. I didn't annotate, so I didn't actually write in it, mainly because I wasn't sure if I was going to end up keeping it at the end of the book. Hello. I ended up just tabbing it instead of actually fully annotating it. So this is the book. So the rating that I overall gave it was a 3.5 stars. So we'll see if that matches up. So basically the way that call pile works is that call pile is actually an acronym for characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. So in each of those categories, you rate it from a 1 to a 10. Then you take those numbers and you divide it by 7, and then we're at whatever that number is kind of falls into a star range. So I haven't actually did my like actual call pile for this book yet, so I am right there with you. I have no idea if my actual 3.5 star rating would match up with what call pile has to say, so we will need to see. So first and foremost is the characters. So the characters out of 10, I'm going to also write it on my phone so that I can know the numbers by the end. So for the characters, I'm actually going to give them a 9. I actually really enjoyed our characters. Towards the ending, Sadie wasn't my favorite, but I loved the complexity of their relationships. This is also a pretty diverse book. All of the characters are different. Apart from Sadie and Sam, there is also another really important character called Marks, who ends up being their like video game producer, I believe, because he was Sam's roommate in college. So that's kind of how they met. And I really liked Marks, I really liked Sam, and I really liked Sadie. There are, of course, other side characters that kind of make an appearance, but I don't really want to tell you who becomes important because then, you know, just it's fine. But so I actually give the characters a 9. Like I said, I super enjoyed them. I thought they were all interesting. Their choices made sense. Yeah, I loved the inner monologue of the characters and the overall personalities of them. I thought they were all very different, but their choices always made sense based on their like characteristics sort of thing, like their personalities. So I actually really enjoyed the characters. So I'll give that one a 9. We are off to a great start, I guess. So the second one is Atmosphere. I'm actually gonna give this a 6. I'm giving it a 6 because the atmosphere didn't really stick out to me. Most of the atmosphere, I guess, they're just kind of like creating video games together. So there's a lot of video game talk. They're usually just like sitting in a dorm or like an office trying to figure out these video games. And it's pretty much like most of the atmosphere. It's just like a very, I don't know, like they're just talking all the time, trying to figure out the kinks of the video game. And yeah, so the atmosphere was fine. I didn't think it was anything like super special. It was kind of just there in my opinion. So I'll just give that one a 6. Next we have writing, and I'm actually going to give the writing like a 6.5. This is not like self-deprecating or anything, but I don't think that I was smart enough for the writing. I don't even know like what the writing style is or like what, yeah, I just don't know. The way it was written, it took me a while to get into. So like I read maybe like the first 3 or so chapters, or like I think I read like the first part and a half, because there's like I believe like 7 parts in this book, and then like chapters within each section. Okay, so there's 10 parts, and within each part there's chapters. So I think I read like a part and a half, and it was really hard for me to get into because of the writing style. I don't know what the writing style is called, like which POV it's in, because I'm not that great. I was never an English major, it's fine. So I thought it was too smart for me that it took me a bit to get into. And then after reading like a part and a half of the book, I decided to get the audiobook, and that helped me a lot. I think if I was not able to get the audiobook, I might not have even ended up finishing it, or it would have taken me forever to finish. But once I got into the audiobook, I was able to switch off between the two, so that helped me a lot. I definitely recommend the audiobook if you are looking to get into this and the writing isn't really like your style, you're not really meshing with it, or like, you know, it's not as intriguing to you, then I would definitely look into the audiobook if you're able to. Next we have plot, and for the plot, I'll give it like a 7.5. The overall plot was very fun. At first it was very fun. I really enjoyed, like, although I don't care too much about video games, that was like what the bulk of this book was about. Although I didn't care too much about that, and they mentioned it a lot, I felt like it wasn't too much. When they brought up video games and like creators, they talked about it for a while, but then it wouldn't come up again until way later. So I thought like that was okay. But overall, the plot was super interesting. Seeing Sam and Sadie reconnect and how they kind of work together, figuring out like their past, what happened, and whether or not they could get through that. Sam also has a disability, so it was super interesting to see him deal with that and how he works through all of that. So I really liked the plot. But I will say, after like the climax, the peak of the story, it got really slow, and I just felt like this book probably could have been 100 pages shorter, but because it just slowed down so much in the second half, I couldn't give it higher than like a 7.5, because the second half I was dragging. Like for the second half, I did primarily audio, because every time I tried to read it physically, it was just like so slow that nothing was happening for pages and pages and pages. So I mean, it's fine. We'll get through it. For the intrigue, I'm actually going to give that a 7. Honestly, this isn't a book that I would have picked up for myself, but this was on my 12 and 12, so that's mainly the reason that kind of pushed me to read it. When I seen it going around, the intrigue didn't really capture me because I heard that it was mainly about video games and video game creators, which I'm not really familiar. I do very limited gaming. Animal Crossing is probably my go-to. Tetris, like, you know, like those very simple mindless games are like my sort of games, but these are like very like high-tech games. I mean, they brought up like one game that I knew, which was like Mario. That's it, Super Mario Bros. But they bring up a lot of games, so like the intrigue wasn't there for me. But once I got into it, like I said, the first half really stuck to me. Like, I was interested in seeing what happened and how it would all figure itself out. So I think the intrigue was there once I got into it, but originally it wasn't really there for me, if that makes sense. And then the next one is logic. The logic I'm gonna give like an 8.5. Like, it was logical. I'm not entirely sure what logic is supposed to mean, but like the story made sense, the way it flowed, the way things happened, like everything made sense. It wasn't a full 10 because the ending part, they are like adults, but in my opinion, they didn't act like adults. There was a lot of lack of communication, and I thought that a lot of the book could have been solved quicker had conversations been had instead of, you know, them kind of just pushing each other away, which I understand based on like the premise and like what happened in the book. But I feel like adults and them knowing each other for as long as they have, they probably should have been able to communicate a little bit better. So I guess we'll stick with that being an 8.5. And then overall enjoyment, I'll give a 7 because I really loved the first half, but the second half was just not it for me. Like I said, once I got into the book, it was easy to read the book, especially with the audio, but then the second half dragged, and I was kind of just like, do I even care what happens at this point? Once the climax hit, I expected for things to develop quickly, and it did the exact opposite. So that kind of really hindered my enjoyment. And then I can't really fault the book, but I mean, it's my opinion, so like it's fine. The video game talk wasn't for me. Like, they were talking about systems and all of this stuff, and I don't know obviously how video games work. I don't know a lot of the video games they talked about, so that obviously hindered my enjoyment a little bit, which is not necessarily at a fault to the book because I knew that they were video game creators. I just didn't know that they were going to talk about like everything to do with video games as much as they did. So yeah. So that is everything. Overall, we have a 9 for characters, 6 for atmosphere, 6.5 for writing, 7.5 for plot, 7 for intrigue, 8.5 for logic, and 7 for enjoyment. For some reason, I feel like this is going to be higher than a 3.5, but we'll go ahead and do the math and see what happens. Okay, so our overall number is 51.5. Divide that by 7, and we have a 7.3. Based on the rating, actually, that would be a 4-star, because the 4-star rating is a 7 to an 8.9. The cutoff for a 3-star is 6.9. I guess that actually kind of is a 3.5. Sorry if there's a shift change. I had to do something really quick, but now I'm back. So anyways, like we were saying, 7.3. It seems to be about a 3.5 because it is on the lower end of a 4-star. 4-star starts at 7.5 and ends at 8.9. So I feel like I did pretty good. It is pretty much a 3.5 star. So overall, 3.5 star for Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle. Zevin, I know lots of people love this book. Let me know your opinions. If you would like to, or if you have not read this book, let me know if this is something that you would be interested in. So this time of my book reviews, my rating has seemed to match up with KEKAILIFTS. So stay tuned for more of these. I do plan on doing it for every single one of my 12 and 12 picks, maybe even more, not really sure, but I do love the whole comparison between what I actually rated it and what KEKAILIFTS would say that I have rated it. I will leave G from Book Roast down below if you want to check her out. I'm sure she has videos explaining the rating system more because as far as I know, she's the creator of it. Stay tuned for more, of course. I'll leave my rapid review playlist down below if you are interested. There's only one other video in there, but I am hoping that I do more reviews here on BookTube in this year. So that's pretty much all from me. You can like, comment, and subscribe down below if you like. All of my socials, follow me anywhere else, are in the description as always. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!